So in this video, we wanted to walk you through step by step how we framed up the exterior walls of the first floor of our house. So as you can see here, we've got all of our bottom plates and our double top plates in place and cut to length and laid out around the exterior so that we could then go around and mark out the locations of all of our openings. So here you can see the king studs with the K, and H marks the header or the jack studs, and X marks the spot for our 16-inch on center studs. So I just wanted to go around, and after we marked those up, I wanted to double check and make sure that all of our openings, our doors, our windows were in the right locations, and that any interior walls that intersect with the exterior walls were also marked out in the right locations to make sure that we provided the right number of studs in order to tie in those interior walls to the exterior. So I just wanted to go around and double check and make sure that everything was in the right location and going into the right spot before we started laying out all of our studs. So here you can see the very first wall going up. This was one of our kitchen walls, so we kind of experimented with putting in some backing before the wall was actually up. So when we were framing it, we added in the backing. Turns out it really wasn't very helpful, and we ended up going back later and adding backing. But as you can see here, one of the important steps was making sure that we added some supports on either side, make sure we're level, and then moving on to the next wall and the third wall. Seems like they go up pretty fast when you watch on video coming back, but in reality, each wall actually took quite a bit to do. So here you can see I'm laying out our little 2-foot cantilever walls. These are the walls that go in between on the sides of each cantilever section. So these were super simple walls, the simplest walls that we built in the whole house, because all it was 2 studs and a bottom plate and a top plate, and then another top plate would eventually go on top of that to tie in this wall in between. So as you can see behind me, while I'm putting those together, my dad is working on making sure that the wall that we just lifted up into place is square and in the right location and plumb in every direction before we tie it all in and nail it into place and add these short little cantilever walls in between. So those ones are super easy to just lift up into place individually. And as you can see here, my dad's placing the first one there, and then we work on getting the second one in its location on the other side of this cantilever section. As you can see, there's a big double door that's going to be going in, so you can see what I was talking about with the king studs on either side of the opening and the jack studs holding up that header. As you can see here, we also had to switch because they were just slightly different and one would not fit into place, so they were measured exactly into the right spot. This is where our crane came in handy for moving a lot of our lumber around the project. So we needed some more lumber on up closer to where we were framing. So we lifted some up and placed it on the floor so that we had easy access. So that was one of the many ways that the crane really came in handy for us. So here you can see step by step how we build one of these exterior walls. We started out by marking out at the bottom. You can see we've got one of our top plates and our bottom plate together so that we can make sure all our marks are in line with each other. And once each one was marked up, we were able to bring that top plate up to the top so that we could then use the studs that I had brought over while my dad was marking that up and start putting them in place. So structurally, we had to have quite a few studs in these exterior walls. At the corners, there was several studs that we had to nail together, and then each opening required structurally to have 2 king studs and 2 jack studs to hold up the header. So as you can see here, I'm just kind of laying them out, getting them into approximately the right place so we could strategize the best way to nail in the multiple studs together in a way that we still had access with the large nail gun without other studs getting in the way. So you can see also at the top of the wall above where that opening will be, we also laid out our cripples. So we would measure out how tall those cripples were supposed to be and then just cut a bunch of them all at once so that it would move along a little quicker. So here I am nailing in at one end where we have multiple studs that need to be together because that's at the corner of the cantilever, and another exterior wall, those short little exterior walls, is going to tie in at that location. So once I nail in 2 nails at the bottom, I nail along the side to nail the 2 studs together all the way up to the top of the wall, and nail those in place on the top as well. And then I can start lining up with the markings, the studs that go every 16-inch on center. We place a couple nails at the bottom, a couple nails at the top, and the studs go in pretty easy and quickly. And then I started on the other side of the wall, nailing in the outer stud first, so that one went in place first, and then the stud directly next to it, I was able to nail in together as well, before moving on to the other stud. So you can see here, kind of alternating the nail pattern all along that stud from top to bottom. And then with those outer corners kind of set with this wall, I'm able to then put into place each stud as we go along here. There's another one getting nailed in together for a total of 3 studs in a row at this corner. Per structural. Quite beefy, but that was what was required, so that's what we put in. So here you can see my dad, while I'm nailing in, is getting those jack studs on either side of the opening in place. He just cut those for us, and now he's starting to nail in the rest of those studs that are required there. So we have quite a bit of wood in a short little wall. So while he's finishing nailing in those studs, I'm working on laying out the elements that we used for the headers above our doors and windows. So we have a horizontal piece of stud that goes across and sits on top of those jack studs that's on either side of the opening. We have one on top and bottom, and then that is our header piece that will be going in between those 2 horizontal pieces of studs. So we nail in our jack studs one at a time on either side, and then we can start placing our header in its location, nail that in along the bottom, holding it in place before we then move on to the other side of the header, to the top side, and nail in that piece as well. So it's amazing how many nails you go through as you frame up a wall. Even though there's quite a big opening, it's a 6 by 7 foot opening. We're going to have double patio doors in this location, and so we still have quite a few studs. There's that second king stud on one side getting put in place and nailed in. With our header in place, we are just about done with this wall, just marking out where we'll put those cripples, those studs that go above the header, making sure everything is nailed in for the studs at the top and bottom. And then we moved on to the next wall, which didn't have any openings in it, but as you can see, a few studs got left behind. So we'll have to nail those in place with the wall already vertical. And here you can see one of our favorite games of the project called Where Did I Set That Tool Down? That's how we spent quite a bit of the project and our time looking for tools. But things still seemed to move quickly as we lifted walls into place and moved along with building and framing these exterior walls. tried to make the framing process as smooth and simple and efficient as possible. So one of the things that we did is we would cut our cripples in bulk. That way we would cut a bunch of them at a time and then just kind of throw them into place as we needed them in the wall, since all of our cripples for our windows were the same above and below, and were the same for our doors on the exterior as well. So here you can see it's the same process every time with each wall. Lay out your studs, lay out your cripples, bring in your jack studs, and get everything into place before you nail it in. So here you can see here the biggest wall that we had on the project going up, and this one was a bit of a challenge. My dad decided to do the whole length of it all at once versus in portions, and it meant it was quite a hefty lift to get it up vertical into place. So my dad used a combination of the crane and straps and some framing tools for lifting that big wall into place. Looking back, we would have done it a little differently, just because that big wall for our double height entry was quite the challenge, and we realized after the fact that we forgot to frame out a window, so we had to redo that portion of the wall anyways. So looking back, we would have done that a little differently, but we managed to get it in place. Here you can see as we would put walls up, we would make sure that we braced those walls, especially in the springtime. We get a lot of wind here, and in this scenario, we had to deal with some out of plumb walls due to a tornado that went by one day. So here you can see lifting into place one of those exterior walls. Once we kind of got into the rhythm, each wall was the same process, the same formula over and over, and we got a bit quicker, I think, as each one went by. And there you have the last wall on the exterior of our first floor going into place, which was an exciting moment. And there you have it, folks. There is all of the exterior walls on our first floor. I even got a few of our interior walls in, so we still have bracing and things attached to those. So we will be moving on to our interior walls next, and that's something to celebrate, just like this little one thinks so. So stay tuned for the next video.